Okay, so now we're going to worksheet 2.2, dividing decimals. You did number 1 and 6 in class with your partner after our mini lesson. I'm going to do 2 more problems, and I'm going to do problems 8 and 9 with you, where we did in class 1 and 6. So let's look at 8. 8 is 10 and 81 hundredths divided by 2 and 35 hundredths. So let me write that. Bring my paper down. So let's do 8. I said that was 10 and 81 hundredths divided by, let's make sure you can see it, 2 and 35 hundredths. So again, dividend being divided by the divisor, 10.81, or 10 and 81 hundredths divided by the divisor of 2 and 35 hundredths. Now it's time for us to remember the steps of dividing by decimals. We have to move the decimal in each part, the divisor and dividend, because our divisor cannot be a decimal. So that means if I'm making 2 and 35 hundredths a whole number, I have to make it 235. How many times did I move the decimal? I moved the decimal twice to the right, which basically means I'm multiplying divisor and dividend by 100. As long as you make sure you move the decimal or multiply by 100 in both the divisor and the dividend, you are not changing the value of this problem. So let me also move the decimal twice here. For me, I have to rewrite the problem because I want to make sure I do not place the decimal in the wrong spot. So I'm going to make this 235 because again I moved my decimal twice to the right, making this a whole number, and consequently I have to move the dividend twice, making this 1081. Now I can divide as normal. So I need to ask myself, well, how many times can 235 go into 1081? I always resort back to multiplying because I cannot do this in my head. So let me just start with 235 times 3 and see what I get. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1. That becomes 10. Carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Carry the 1. Makes that 7. I feel I can get closer to 1,000 because if I just add, and I'm estimating, I'm making this 200. If I add 200 to 705, that'll give me 905. So let me just multiply and see what I get with 235 times 4. Well, 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 1. 4 times 3 is 12. Add 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 4 times 2 is 8. Add the 1. That gives me 9. That's probably the closest I'm going to get. So I'm going to say that 235 can go into 1084 times. Remembering my steps, DMSB, and then repeat. I divide. I'm sorry, I had to pause it. I was at my steps. I wrote my steps: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and then of course repeat. So we just did the first step of divide. Now we need to multiply, which we did over here. 4 times 235 is 940. Now it's time to subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. 8 minus 4 is 4. I cannot take away 9 from 0, so I do have to regroup. So I'd make that a 10 minus 9 is 1. And then 1 will become a 0 because I added 10 for the regrouping. So 0 is what this would be. So I'm not going to write anything there. But I know 141 cannot be divided by 235. So just like in worksheet 1 where we had to place a decimal in our dividend and add a 0, we have to do the same thing here. So now I have, and I brought down the 0 because we subtracted. Now I have a 0 to bring down, so I brought it down. Okay, so we have 1,410. Well, now it's back to division. I have to determine how many times can my divisor go into 1,410. I'm all the way up at 940 when I multiply 235 times 4, so I'm just going to guess and try 6. Because I feel like at least if I add, I'm estimating 400 to 940, that'll give me in the 1300 range. So let's be exact with our multiplication. 235 times 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 plus 3 is, what do we get? 21. Carry the 2. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 2 is 14. We have the exact answer we need. So I'm going to place my 6 and my decimal, because you have to place your decimal exactly where it is in your quotient. And I'm going to place my 6 directly above my 0 because I brought down my 0 to get 1,410. So I have divided. Now it's time to multiply, which we did over here. 235 times 6 is 1,410. Now I subtract. That gives me 0. So I am in the free and clear. My quotient to this problem is going to be 4 6/10. If I want to make sure my quotient is correct, again, I can make this a multiplication problem to see if I get my dividend, and that's what I'm going to do. 2 3500 times 4 6/10. Let's go ahead and multiply it out. Remember, you don't have to line up your decimals here. You're worried about how many digits are behind your decimal once you actually get to your answer. So I have 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 3 is 18. Carry the 1. That gives me 21. Carry my 2. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. Placeholder time, because now I'm dealing with another place value. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry my 2. 4 times 3 is 14. Add my 2 is 16. Carry my 1. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. My numbers are aligned as they should be. Now I can add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus 1 plus 0 is 1. 4 plus 6 is 10. Carry the 1. 9, 10, 11. Okay, so now I have 2 and 35, 2 decimal or 2 digits behind my decimal, 4 and then 1 here. So I should have 3. Well, guess what I'm coming across? I'm not getting back to my dividend of 10.01. Why is that? I'm first going to go back and check my math. 5 times 6, 30, 18, 19, 20, 21, 14, placeholder, 20, 12, let's see here. Looks like I may have multiplied wrong with my 4. So I have my placeholder. 4 times 5 is 20. I carried my 2. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. Carry my 1. 4 times 2 is 8. and I add my 1, so that gives me 9. So now I have to add 0 plus 0, 1 plus 0, 4 plus 4 is 8, 1 plus 9 is 10. That looks much better. Rechecking your work is always key. Again, I have 1, 2, 3 digits behind the decimal, so I need to have 1, 2, 3 digits behind the decimal. Now I have correctly multiplied, so we see my quotient of 4 6/10 is correct, because when I multiply quotient times divisor, I get my dividend of 10 81 hundredths.